Hi everyone, welcome back to Sow Arizona. Today we are talking about seeds that you can directly sow in your garden in mid to late May so that you can get plants started even if you fell a little behind and you don't have those beautiful transplants ready to set out. You actually have a lot of different options for seeds that you can sow directly in your garden right now, and I want to talk about each one of those right now. They are excellent performers in our summer heat, and by mid to late May we are certainly getting some of those high temperatures that we're so familiar with during the summer in southern Arizona. The best part is that the high temperatures are going to increase germination, so those seeds are going to sprout fast. If you're looking for a quick growing, heat loving herb, basil is the answer. I love basil. I think that it is really hard to find dried basil that will compare in flavor, and I just cannot wait for basil to start coming out of my garden in the summertime, and it is such a flavorful and wonderful herb. Basil loves the heat and hates the cold, and in that way I'm very similar. I think that basil is a really beautiful plant. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I've got some miniature ones right now that are called window box basil, and those only get to about 8 to 10 inches tall, and they have the sweetest little petite leaves. You've also got the big, bold, and beautiful Genovese basil, and you have ones that are in between that. You've got green towers basil, which is long and slender, and then you've got purple basil, which is beautiful, and it has those light lavender flowers. So there are a lot of different combinations and different flavors. Thai basil, lemon basil, just all kinds of things. I love the traditional Genovese basil best, but I also love how beautiful the dark purple basil is. I don't love the flavor as much. I think that it has more of an anise or licorice flavor to it, but I love how it looks, and so I always like to mix a few of those seeds in with my green basil just for the look of it, because you couldn't get a prettier combination than the emerald green leaves of the Genovese basil and then those dark blackish purple leaves of the opal purple basil. If you didn't start flowers and you don't have transplants to set out, don't worry about that. There are several really beautiful heat-loving flowers that you can sow directly in your garden right now. One of them is, of course, sunflowers, which I think is just the ambassador of the summer garden. And there are also zinnias and cosmos and amaranth. Those are by far the easiest to directly sow if you want quick flowers. So probably if you sow zinnias right now, then you will have blooms by July, and those can go into August, September, October even. Those are by far the easiest and the fastest growing if you're looking for summer pops of color for yourself and for the pollinators in your summer garden. Every season I will start seeds in the house so that I have seedlings to set directly outside, but then I will also continue to succession plant things like zinnias and amaranth and sunflowers throughout the summer so that I can extend the period of time where I have blooms, both blooms for myself and blooms for the pollinators. And it just adds such a beautiful variety of color in the garden that I look forward to so much every year. I like mixing different kinds of amaranth. You've got the Hopi red amaranth with those beautiful dark red leaves, and you've got the New Mexico amaranth that has the lighter green leaves and the white flower, and everything in between. There are some really great varieties that you can purchase from Native Seed Search, and it's not too late to buy those seeds right now. And the best part is that you will definitely be getting some volunteers next season because they always drop some of their seeds. When I find a volunteer growing in an inopportune place, I will just carefully scoop it up while it is still small and transplant it elsewhere in the garden. I love having those bonus plants that planted themselves because that meant less work for me, but I get to enjoy their beauty all summer. I am still really enjoying some of the early spring blooms. Nobody told the pansies that they should not be blooming right now, and I tried some black pansies this year, which sounds a little weird, but they have this very sparkly, velvety look to them that looks so beautiful in the sunshine. I also have clouds of that white elegant Orlea along with Scabiosa along a couple sides of my garlic bed that have just been such a treat, and the pollinators, particularly the really small pollinators, flowers. Love the flat umbel-shaped flowers that the Orlea plant produces, and they just look so delicate and lacy. I have just been loving them so much, and I noticed that some of them are starting to produce seeds, so as soon as those are dry, I will be harvesting those for next season. Summer squash, winter squash, melons, watermelons, cantaloupes, things like that can be planted directly in your garden right now by seed, and those are going to pop up and germinate so quickly right now with the high temperatures that we've been having. I just planted some more kiribasho melons and also some of the yellow meated watermelons that I love. Those are probably my very favorite watermelons of all time, and they did so well last year. I got several really big watermelons, so I have been sowing those seeds around the garden so that they can trail and vine and hopefully give me even more fruit this year. I planted some kiribasho melon seeds about a month ago, and those are doing really well. The plants are huge right now, and so I've also succession sown some more in other little spots of the garden. So every couple of weeks I've put another seed or two into the soil because my hope is that I can get a lot of melons. So if you're wondering about the kiribasho melon, I got my original seeds from Native Seed Search, and then I have saved seeds from my garden every year since then, and they have been doing so well. In fact, I feel like they're doing better every year, and it's probably because I try to choose the best plant and the best melon so that they are more adapted to my growing space and my little microclimate. If you've never tried a kiribasho melon, I think you're in for a real treat. It may sound a little bit strange, and of course everyone's taste is different, but to me it tastes kind of like melted vanilla ice cream, and it is by far my favorite cantaloupe style melon that I have tried. So really, I've tried some other different ones, and I keep coming back to the kiribasho cantaloupe type melon and also to the yellow meated Tahana Autumn watermelon, and that's because they are just so delicious and it's really hard to beat the flavor. But if you're wanting zucchini or crookneck squash or summer squash, you can directly sow those seeds in the garden right now. In fact, I find that it works really well with pests that are in the garden that tend to attack zucchini and summer squash plants to succession sow plants throughout the season. So either I will start them directly out in the garden like I'm advising you to do now, or I will have transplants ready in the house that I can then set out. And that's because a lot of times squash bugs or squash vine borers will attack your mature plants out in the garden. If you've ever had a zucchini plant that is healthy and vibrant and producing, and then you go out one day and it's just completely wilted and dying, then chances are it's probably the squash vine borer. The adult form will come and lay eggs in the main stalk of the plant, and then the larva will eat through that, and eventually you will find that you have a dead and wilted plant on your hands where maybe the day before it appeared okay. So I like to replace those throughout the season. They're quick growing, and if I have my transplants ready, that's even better. But if not, you can always be having seeds directly sown in the garden that are coming up to replace any potential losses that you get from pests throughout the season. It's not too late to start pumpkins. In fact, I find that planting pumpkins now, June through July, around when monsoons start, is a really good time. And then you can still get pumpkins, hopefully by October or November. If not for Halloween, then definitely by Thanksgiving if you want to produce your fruits for your pies and your casseroles and things for the holiday season. So I just really love the Magdalena Big Cheese and also the Rancho Marquez, I think is how you pronounce it. Those two are by far my very favorite of the squash that I get from Native Seed Search, and I save the seeds of those every year. So you can try those if you like, or if there's another favorite winter squash that you like, maybe a spaghetti squash or a different form of pumpkin or, you know, something like that, then definitely just direct sow those seeds right now in the garden and you should have some fruit by fall. One of the superstars of summer is okra, and my dad always grew okra when I was growing up in the Midwest, and I hated it. I thought it was slimy and gross, but as I've gotten older, I have found a couple of different ways to cook it, either frying or air frying or just braising it in a super hot pan that can kind of help with eliminating some of the slime. But I do think it's a bit of an acquired taste for sure, and I really like okra at this point in my life. So I am always planting okra in my summer garden, and it does so well in the heat. It does not seem to mind the heat at all. In fact, the more heat, the better for okra. In the long bed behind me, it's about a 30-foot bed. I have alternated, I think, 4 or 5 different kinds of okra. I've got burgundy okra. I have Beck's garden variety from Native Seed Search. I have got the Hing orange variety, I think is what it's called, from Baker Creek. I also have the heavy hitter from Baker Creek, which will be new for me this year. So I've got several different ones out in the garden, and I've planted 4 or 5 plants of one variety and then switched to 4 or 5 plants of the other, all the way down this 30-foot row. So hopefully I will get a lot of okra. And my plan is to have the watermelons growing underneath the okra, and then I have the pepper plants that will hopefully get some dappled shade from the okra leaves. Okra is a tall and slender plant, so it will provide some dappled shade, but not deep shade. So I find that a lot of things actually really perform well underneath the canopy of the okra because it can break up some of that intense sunshine that we get throughout the summer season here. I've been going along and noticing that my okra plants have germinated, and I'm starting to get these adorable little sprouts all the way along. And so I'm going to have to carefully harvest out the onions that are growing right in front of them. I've had to stagger the spring and the summer things so that I don't have any empty beds anywhere, as I repeat all the time about that, is starting things while your other previous season's things are still finishing up with their maturity. So that way you never have an empty space. You can always have something growing and developing in your beds and not have that gap where you're not harvesting anything in your garden. If you're growing beans, you can grow beans underneath okra because okra has a very tall and slender stalk, and as it develops the pods all the way along, then some of those leaves will fall off and then the beans can climb up that stem, and I've had really good luck with that. So that's a great combination option if you're looking to maximize your space. Speaking of beans, this is a great transition into talking about beans because there are quite a few varieties that do really well in the heat in southern Arizona that you can also directly seed right now. I know I just said that okra is the superstar of the summer garden, but really I should probably take that back just a bit and say if you're looking for plants that will do really well the hotter that it gets, cowpeas are a great option. And I got a huge harvest from cowpeas last year. I have still got bags and jars of cowpeas that are left over from the harvest that we have been eating from all winter long, and I still have quite a few left. I could probably get maybe 4 or 5 more batches of soup out of them, and they are really delicious. I tried the Tohono O'odham cowpea, and those are the really cute black and white little mottled cowpeas. They definitely look like cows, like their namesake. So anyway, you could try those if you like, but there are so many different varieties of cowpea. Native Seed Search has got a lot of different options. This year I'm trying a new variety that I got from Seed Savers Exchange called the Red Ripper cowpea, which is just like a brick red cowpea that's supposed to be really prolific. Now, I will offer some caution, and that is that cowpeas are definitely bullies. If you're looking to plant cowpeas, make sure that you give them enough space because they will take over whatever space that you put them in. I think they're really beautiful plants. They have extra floral nectaries on them, and if you don't know what that is, I talk about it in a video that I did last summer, and I will link that below, and it describes everything about cowpeas and how they are great for pollinators because of these extra floral nectaries, which produce extra nectar, as the name would imply, and those attract a lot of different pollinators to your garden. Last year I planted cowpeas along with my Flor del Rio popcorn, and I have to say I probably would not do that combination again. I had a Three Sisters style garden where I'm growing the garlic right now, and that became a bit of a jungle last year, and that's because that variety of popcorn that I just mentioned is a little bit smaller statured plant, and the cowpeas just grew up them and kind of made them bend over and took some of the plants down. Now I still got a really good harvest from the popcorn plants, but probably not as good as if they didn't have to fight and struggle with the cowpeas the entire summer. So if you're going to be planting cowpeas along with corn, make sure that you have a full tall, statured corn that can withstand being climbed up by the cowpea. I have seen a lot of different kinds of corn grown with cowpeas, so it will work, but you definitely need to make sure it's a full-sized corn. I think this year I may try the Dakota Black popcorn instead, either that or a Silver Queen sweet corn. So I haven't decided on that yet. I'm still waiting for this bed behind me to finish up for the garlic to mature so that I can harvest that. And then at that point I will amend the soil, and then I'm going to be planting alternating rows of corn and beans in that bed for the summertime. So I will let you know what combination I end up trying. I'm still flirting with the idea of doing a Hidatsa Red, more of a bush type of bean in that bed instead of cowpea, but I'll let you know. If you want to grow cowpeas, but maybe are a little bit nervous about combining them in a bed with something else because they tend to be bullies, you can give them their own space. They'll also grow really well on a trellis or a cattle panel, and a cattle panel is something used by ranchers and farmers to fence in livestock, but it's a really heavy duty square wire panel, but they are easily curved because they come, I think, in 16-foot sections, so you can either cut them down and use them in smaller spaces, or you can use them as a curved and overhead trellis, kind of like an arch. So it's up to you, but those cowpeas will certainly grow on those too if you're wanting to grow up vertically because of space issues, or you could just put them in a bed by themselves if you have enough space. Of course, tepary beans are wonderful for the desert. They are really good for being efficient with water. They don't mind the heat. So what I like to do with my tepary beans, because they take such little water, is I will plant them in a bed by themselves. And that's because if you water tepary beans too much, you'll end up with a bunch of beautiful foliage, but they won't produce beans. So what I like to do is water them maybe once a week. If we get monsoon storms, then I may not water them at all that week. And they are amazing plants because they are so efficient with water. And I think that's probably why the indigenous peoples would grow them so often, because they were such a great source of protein and nutrition in the desert where there's little rainfall. So definitely try those, but make sure you isolate them and either grow them with other things that require low water. Don't combine them in beds with other things that need more water, because then you may get productivity on the plants that need more water, but then you're just going to get a lot of foliage on the tepary beans. So make sure you isolate those. Green beans can be a little bit iffy in the heat. Sometimes they get stressed and they don't produce well, and around 90 degrees or so, you may find that your green beans drop their blossoms and don't produce beans. But I have found that I get good luck with the jade green bean and also with the contender. Those are bush beans. As far as pole beans, I've had really good luck with the rattlesnake bean that will give you either a dried bean if you want to leave the pods on the plant to dry, or you can pick them young when they're tender as a green bean. So those three are great options for the heat that perform a little bit better. Runner beans, such as scarlet runner beans, produce a beautiful crimson bloom that the bumblebees and the carpenter bees really love, and I love them too. I've even seen hummingbirds coming to my little teepees that I have grown them on in previous seasons. They tend to not produce bean pods until a little bit later in the season, both because the plant needs to mature, but also because they don't really like the high temperatures like a lot of beans, and they tend to drop their blooms until the temperatures cool down just a bit. So you may find you get a lot of blooms throughout the summer, and then maybe more towards late summer or fall, then you may start finding that they are prolifically putting on pods. And then I was actually harvesting the pods from my plants in December one year. So it's a pretty late harvest, but you certainly get to enjoy the beautiful plant until then, and the pollinators love that one too. And the plant itself does really well in the heat. It's just that it doesn't produce as much fruit. A couple other options are cucumbers and gourds. You can still sow seeds for cucumbers. I have a couple of videos on cucumbers that I will link below, both in choosing varieties that are less bitter, but also in just all kinds of different information on how to grow cucumbers and how to choose good varieties and what some of the vocabulary means on some of the varieties, like parthenocarpic or gynoecious or monoecious and things like that, that are really helpful in understanding how to choose the best cucumber variety for you. So definitely check those out below. I will leave the links there for you. But if you want to grow cucumbers, you can directly sow the seeds right now, both for the traditional style cucumbers as well as for Armenian cucumbers, which are technically melons but have that wonderful cucumber flavor and don't come with the bitterness and are just really great for the heat. But in general, cucumbers do pretty well in the heat, I think. Some varieties will produce more bitterness in the heat than others, which is why I recommended that you watch some of those videos to try to help you find ones that have a lower bitterness. I like growing my cucumbers underneath my eggplants. They shade the soil, they utilize the space underneath the eggplants because eggplants grow a little bit taller, and I find that those are a great combination together. I planted these cucumber seeds probably a month ago, and so they were a little bit slow, but as the heat has started to turn up, they have started really growing quickly. So if you're looking for a way to maximize your space and shade your soil so that you have better water efficiency and just more moderate temperatures for the plant roots underneath, combining cucumbers with some other taller plants like tomatoes or eggplants is a really great option. I've got a cucumber growing here with my peppers too. Let's see, there's another one over here. I planted a few cucumber seeds in here. Looks like I got a volunteer amaranth. I may have to move that because that is just too close to the peppers and to the cucumbers, but I love letting them just cover the soil underneath some of these taller plants like the peppers and the tomatoes and the eggplants. I've got, let's see, oh, here's a cucumber that has sprouted. I don't know if y'all can see that, but he's hiding down in there along with these eggplants. There's a couple of them in this bed. Alongside this amaranth in the back, I've got these lovely kiribasho melons, and they are just going crazy. Here, look at that. Those look like really healthy plants. I can almost taste that melon right now. My plan is just to let them grow out here next to these figs. Now that I'm back here, I'm noticing all of these silverleaf nightshades everywhere. I gotta get those out of there before they set flower. Oh my gosh, y'all, I was talking to the camera and telling you all about the sweet corn and the sweet potato slips, and I realized that I hadn't pushed record, so I was talking to myself. So let's try this again. Since we're talking about corn and cowpeas growing together, let's just talk about corn, because that's another variety that you can sow directly by seed in your garden in mid to late May. I have a special spot in my heart for Silver Queen sweet corn, just because I grew up eating that in the Midwest and I have a lot of fond memories attached to it. It tends to be a bit temperamental, honestly, for this climate here in southern Arizona, but I am willing to put a little more effort into it for the result, just because it really means a lot to me and it reminds me of a lot of happy memories. But if you don't want to fight as much for your harvest, there are so many different great varieties of sweet corn and popcorn and flour corn that you can choose from. Check out Native Seed Search or also Seed Savers Exchange. There are so many different ones that you can try. Lastly, sweet potatoes. So I grow my sweet potato slips myself. I will save a sweet potato from the season previous, and then I will stick that sweet potato into some water, let it sprout, take those sprouts off and put those into water and let those roots develop. And then from there, those are the sweet potato slips that I can start in the garden. And I started my sweet potato slips probably in mid-March. If you can find sweet potato slips online or at a local garden center, you probably can still grow those if you get them into the ground right away. But if you're wanting to start your own sweet potato slips in the process that I just described, then it's probably a little bit too late to do that this season. So I would either purchase them or maybe wait until next season. And if you're wondering about that process, I have a video about that. It is a short, and I will link that below for you. If you want to figure out how to grow your own sweet potato slips, it is very easy and very cheap. This is the first zinnia flower of the season. Look at that. This is a volunteer. So I love this little pink color. It's like a cotton candy. But right next to it, I have some green beans. Let me see if I can flip this plant over for you to see. I've got some beans just starting on here. These are the yellow ones, like a wax bean. And I noticed also coming right out from under there is one of the watermelons that I sowed. So hopefully that can just grow under the bottom. But all the way along this bed, I have combined different colors of green beans. I've got yellow and purple and green beans just kind of alternating here. And then right in front of these onions, I don't know if you can see, I've got some little okra, and alternating in there are more watermelon seeds. When these onions get ready, I will have to carefully pull them out so as not to disturb the roots of any of my watermelon or my okra. I think that's about it for the things that you can sow directly by seed into your garden right now. So if you procrastinated, or if you were just too busy this spring, or if you don't want to buy transplants, you still have a lot of options for things that you can grow right now in your garden by seed. So mid to late May, you still have a little bit of time. I would say if you start in June, you're going to have a little more trouble with that. I would wait until monsoon season, but if you do it right now, then you can still get quite a few things growing in your garden by seed. I'm Kara from Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.